Well, I don't know if you ladies have seen what's going on in India, but footage of Indian farmers protesting against agricultural reforms has gone viral online, and the issue has even been brought up with Boris Johnson during Prime Minister's questions. Now, some 250 plus million agricultural workers have gone on a nationwide strike, and the ones who marched in the capital city of Delhi clashed badly with the police. Now, the Indian diaspora has been supporting the movement and taken to the streets worldwide, including in the United Kingdom. So London, Leicester, Birmingham, Northampton, all been a part of the protest, yet the story has just failed to be reported widely in the world media. And it made me think, like, with all the extensive coverage that came for the Black Lives Matter protest in the summer, why aren't we talking about what's going on in India more? And should we even care about what's going on with agricultural workers thousands of miles away? And what support can we offer?
As usual, I just need to take it one question at a time. I think it's natural to have more knowledge on things that impact your personal life, but I think the mentality that we should only care about things if they directly affect us is probably one of the reasons why so many things take so long to fix. We should care about other people's issues because we shouldn't be comfortable with the mistreatment of human beings, and in my opinion, any living being on any scale. So it's interesting that you mentioned Black Lives Matter because, obviously most of the Black community were already aware that the issues that are being brought up through Black Lives Matter, they didn't just spring about this summer. They've been going on for centuries, and we've been experiencing them for a long time, and way before we even put a hashtag to it. But the difference was, obviously, this summer, the level of exposure was something that if you hadn't heard about it before, you can't ignore it now because there's no way that it didn't reach you. And obviously, in terms of the amount of people that were protesting and the amount of states that were protesting, it made it the largest movement in American history. And what's happening in India is now the largest human protest in history because, like you said, Sophie, the amount of people that are protesting is pretty much equivalent to the amount of people that live in the States, just for context. That's how many people are out there. And so I do think there's lots of differences, but one of them is exposure, because the new reforms are making it they're making small farmers vulnerable to big corporations. And the largest corporation in India, one of them, the ones that they've been protesting about, the boss of the largest corporation in India is also the head of the largest media company in the country, and I think that has been affecting it as well.
Oh, I didn't know that last bit. No, then because I was going to say definitely, I think, because I don't know if you guys saw the article around it where they were talking about a lot of the media has been manipulated around what's going on with the protest. And so I was saying I definitely think the government has some control. But now that you've given us that extra piece of information, Luanda, that definitely brings things into context. I think for me, when I heard about it, when I saw the video, I was initially kind of shocked that I hadn't heard about it sooner, especially it's been going on for a couple of weeks and it hadn't even come across my news feeds or my timelines, etc., etc. And then I started to think, I don't know if the reason, when I was thinking, why is this not here? And obviously I can think of ultimate things like the media and manipulation, etc., etc. But then I thought, but why aren't the people on my timeline, why are they not telling me about this? Why are they not tweeting about this? Why are they not feeling outrage? And then I thought to myself, maybe I think it could be because it's not this harshly violent thing that people aren't reacting to it with as much urgency. That's just my opinion. I think sometimes when you can see something like immediate violence, you want to just kind of react to respond to it. But because we're not seeing that specifically, obviously we're hearing about they're tear gassing people and etc., etc. But because we're not seeing that, I think some people are almost just turning a blind eye to it. In regards to what we could do to help, that is a question I don't know the answer to, but I think for me personally, it's about maybe reaching out to their diaspora communities that are here in the UK and saying, how can we support? Is it petitions? Is it more protesting? What can we all do to support? Because I think with rights and human rights, whenever you're protesting about something similar to the Black Lives Matter movement, you have to, even if it's not directly your fight, you have to, we've been saying it throughout the show, it's about allyship and it's about us banding together. So as many people that can stand up for the fight, I think is important. And yeah, that's what I think.
I would probably say as well, like one of the reasons why I don't think it's been picked up, and let's be very specific in the Western world, where we live, is because media only focus on specific areas in news coverage. Now, I studied media a very long time ago, but we had to talk about news, broadcast news, and they're saying we only receive like 5-10% of what's going on in the world in general. Like if they're saying that they don't think it's in areas that we care about or aren't directly linked to us, then it's not going to feature in the news. So things that happen, I don't know if you guys remember, and I only know this because I used to work in international development, but a place called Vanuatu, which is like a small country, like in the Fijian Islands, like literally on the other side of the world. And they had like a really bad, I think it was typhoon, really, really bad, but they're like, it's just not in our area to focus on. And even when we did fundraising for it at work, they're like, no one's really going to care about it because it's not in their area. They don't even know about it. So I think one of the reasons is because India is not going to feature heavily in the West. Now, the protests that happened for Black Lives Matter, they happened in America to begin with. So we're going to get a very different focus. If things happen in America, we're going to be directly linked to finding out about it. Then it happened in the UK, and then it happened in all these other developed parts of the world, and then places that were probably less developed, but mostly you got to focus on Western countries. And it's the same for if there's massive protests or things going on, even with SARS that went on a little while ago in Nigeria. The whole thing was because of people who are messaging and posting on social media. That's how we knew about it. But generally, in terms of news coverage, it's just not in our focus area.
Yeah, in terms of things that we can do to help, I saw this really helpful post by someone. It was reposted on a page called South Asian Nation. So they have a lot of information on their page, and they're reposting a lot of good people to follow. And one of the things that they said was, beware of fake news. They said, support the protests if you can, because like Sophie mentioned at the beginning, there are probably protests happening in your local area. If you can join them, then join them. And they also said to follow real accounts that are showing you what's happening on the ground. And there was a list of these accounts as well, because yeah, like I mentioned with the media, the farmers are being demonized in the media right now. So if you actually want, I guess, more of an honest representation of what's happening, you need to be following people who are on the grounds of the protests and showing us what's going on. I don't think it's because it's not violent, because it definitely is. And I saw, an alderman being beaten with a baton, and that's violent enough for me.
I did not see that. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's been crazy. They've been hit with tear gas. I saw, me, I'm sensitive, so I couldn't watch too much of it, but yes. But I saw enough. So it definitely is violent. I also think there's a lot more going on than just the farmer reforms, because there's an article, a man, I forget his name. He's an agrarian expert, and he wrote an article for The Wire called "Did You Think This Was Just About Farmers?" or something along those lines. And he talks about, in one of the farmer reforms in section 13, it actually says that the small farmers, they have no leg to stand on. You can't fight your case in court. You can't fight anything against the government and the state or these corporations. And it's a really creepy paragraph, because it says something like, no law or no suit will be held against the state or any other persons who does something in goodwill. So it's just a stripping of basic human rights, basically, and it's really creepy. The guy, obviously, like I said, he's an expert, so he's a lot more intelligent than me, and he lays it down in a more digestible way. So for anyone that's interested, go and read that article.
Was that specifically towards farming, or just all things, like maybe people of a certain group can't put anything towards the state?
This is within the farming reform, so this is to do with farming, but he's saying that this is not just you fighting for like your lands, this is now you fighting for your human rights as well, because look at what they've snuck in there. And they're saying that this is also very intentionally happened during the crisis, because I think there's a quote that says, don't waste a good crisis, or something like that. You're expecting people not to have the means to fight back, and that's why this is happening now.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point that you're bringing through, because they said that the government voted this through in September, and they didn't actually liaise with any of the farmers to say whether this is what they wanted. And I think it's just a very tricky situation. And I think in terms of what we were discussing in terms of why should we care about it, I saw this article that was saying we should care about this because, they produce, India produces like turmeric to us, and it's one of, if not the largest export of spices, and it exports rice and this and that. And if you're eating rice, if you're eating these meals, then chances are you are linked to the country of India. And I was just honestly really uncomfortable with that when I read it, because I felt, why should we only be thinking about supporting people or being part of their struggle because it affects us? Like the food on your table is affected. So like the food on your table is affected, therefore you should be a part of this as well. And I think it takes away from the idea of actually, I think as someone said earlier, this is a human rights thing. And I think we have gotten to a very dangerous place in society, if I'm being honest, where everyone has their own personal issues. So it's like, I support Black Lives Matter as I'm Black. If you're Indian, you might support what's going on with the agricultural workers. If you're Jewish, then you're against anti-Semitism and all these different things. And we don't realize that they're actually all linked because it's all injustice. What we're talking about is people having prejudice and injustice against them. And we should be looking at as the commonality as to all the things that are going on. Because even with the Indian diaspora, I think sometimes, like, I don't see, let me be very specific in what I'm saying. I see some friends, like I had friends who were Indian growing up, and they were just like, we were friends, really tight, best friends, this and other. Their families were more than welcome. But if it came to a thing of them being with someone who was Black, their family was like, not a chance. Like, no. Like, only so far. And I think when we still have these sort of divisions where we see ourselves as so separate from each other, it means then when the struggle's going on, well, it's not my struggle, it's their struggle, and we have our own. Because I think that feeds into also this idea of chambers, and it's called a specific word, I've forgotten it. But like when Anissa said, I didn't see it on my timeline, I'm like, well, how many Indians do you have on your timeline? Because if you're not having people from various different groups represented on your timeline, then how are you going to see the major things that are going on in different communities, if that makes sense?
No, it absolutely
I'd like to say
does.
I have a very blended timeline. Just
Yes, girl.
I thought the same thing though, because I didn't hear about this story through the news. I heard about this story through my South Asian friends posting.
But this is what shocked me. This is what shocked me. This is what I'm saying. I'm surprised it didn't come onto my timeline, because I have a lot of South Asian friends, and I speak about, one of my mothers in my mothering tribe, she's half Indian. So I know that her family, and what I'm saying is no one in the family, no one in my friends, nobody brought it to my attention or even mentioned it. So for me, it was kind of like, how has this gone so underneath my radar? Not unless, I know it's COVID, so people are dealing with their own stuff, but it was just, I couldn't believe it had gone that under my nose, if that makes any sense. Especially since my South Asian friends have been really good in the Black Lives Matters protest, and they're still posting about the Black Lives Injustice. So it was surprising to me that they're still posting that, but I didn't see anything about the agriculture.
I guess that's an issue within itself, because we shouldn't have to be relying on Instagram and Twitter. We should actually be seeing this in the mainstream news. We shouldn't have to be like, oh, but there wasn't an Instagram story on this, so I don't know about it. Like I said, with the Black Lives Matter, like, it doesn't matter who you were following on Instagram or who you were following on Twitter, or, who you were friends with on Facebook. You could not escape that news story, because it was global, and every single person, or well, it seemed like it from my point of view, that everyone was talking about it in some capacity. And it's like, if you didn't know about it before, you know about it now. So that's what I mean in the difference in exposure. Because for me, when I'm learning about this, I'm searching for it. But I feel like there was a point this past summer with the Black Lives Matter where there was no way that you could get away from it unless you literally logged off.
Yeah.
But I think that's how you digest news as well, because like me speaking personally, I don't watch the news. I don't have any news apps. I don't read the newspapers. So it's like kind of like news feeds, like I will follow like BBC World and things like that. And so it's, if the news stories pop it up on my timeline in my social media, and I think that's with a lot of people now, is they're getting a lot of their information, whether it is right or wrong, who knows. But a lot of people are getting their information from social media, because that's just how they're choosing to digest their news now. So that's why I was like, I'm so surprised.
Yeah. No, but that's fine. I just think it should be, I was just going to say, it should have been an official
Yeah, it should have been like
instead
an
of a
official
friend,
story. Yeah. No, I agree. All parts.
Because I was saying as well, like, I think that one of the ways that we can really support this movement that's going on for the agricultural workers, because they're like, they are not going to finish protesting until they get what they want. And one thing that really spoke to me was just their sense of unity. Just like, it's just so phenomenal, like the way there is these farmers and workers are there. And you have to think, like, India, over half of the people who live in India are agricultural workers. Like, this affects the majority of people. And I think that we need to make sure that we keep it in our conversations. The same way that people have to keep talking about Black Lives Matter, we have to keep talking about what's going on in India. And one, that keeps it within the public domain, but also it makes sure that if anything is going on, like tear gas or violence or this or that, if we keep talking about it as a world, it can't take its eye off of it. Therefore, the government has to treat people better because they don't want to kind of take down their opinion or their reputation in the world's view. So yeah, India, we're with you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought someone was going to have something to say to that one.
No. I agree wholeheartedly.